In this short video, I'm going to look at a couple of things by Epicurus regarding the scientific method. They're from the letter to Pythocles. Epicurus lived in 341 BC, died in 271 BC. And he is the first person that we know of to cogently think through the implications of a world made out of atoms and void. In other words, if a world is made of atoms and void, moving randomly, what are the implications of that? And he thought the whole thing through. Came up with pretty much what we would now identify in terms of his thought processes with our modern world. Ideas about randomness, ideas about things coming into being through chance collisions of atoms, increasing complexity, things that look designed that are not designed, they're just a survival of those things that are more stable over time, giving us the appearance of design, etc. I'm not going to go into that now. What I'm looking at here is his statement of the scientific method. And I think, as far as I'm aware, this is the earliest statement of what we now know of as the scientific method in any text. Nequenim secundum nova proloquia, legumque sanctiones de natura differendum, sed sicut quae videntur hortantur. Now, of course, he wrote this originally in Greek. This is a Latin translation by Karl Nürnberger from Diogenes Laertius, from the letter to Pythocles. And what he's saying here is that we shouldn't follow postulates, ideas, laws about nature, but rather those laws that we've made up, stories we tell about nature. Rather, we should look, right? And this is what we should. This is what should instruct us. This is what we should be paying attention to. So, quae videntur hortantur. If you wanted to summarize Epicurus's philosophy, then quae videntur hortantur would summarize it. Only accept observable evidence and nothing else. Now, the problem is, of course, you have to interpret evidence, and there was no method to select in any way between different hypotheses at this time. That came later. So, what Epicurus said was that we should not be dogmatic about hypotheses. I'm just trying to find the sentence here. Here we have it. Cum vero quist piam hoc quidem reliquerit aliud autem eicerit. So when you have hypotheses in this time period before we could properly test them, and you reject one and you accept another, quod adparet consonum est, but both of these hypotheses could explain the phenomenon. They are consonant, they are equal in some respect. There's no way we can select one hypothesis from the other hypothesis. In other words, you're looking up at the sun and you can cover it with your thumb, right? And so you can say, well, the sun is the size of my thumb, or you could say the sun is very, very far away and very, very large. But you have no absolute way of selecting between these two hypotheses. So he says, if you do make an intellectual judgment without evidence, then this is what happens. And he's so cum vero quispiam hoc quidem reliquerit, aliud autem eicerit, quod aeque ei, quod adparet consonum est, eum profecto constat, omni naturae excidisse cognitione, atque ad fabulas esse devolutum. So he says, if you do that, you've entered the world of fable. Ad fabulas esse devolutum. You're not engaged in science, you're not engaged in philosophy. So what you need to do is this, in a world where there's no way of selecting between one and the other. Just find the text here, line 88. Nope. Just moving on through the letter to Pythocles here. So, omnibus enim modis fieri potest. All these variations could be quando eorum quae videntur, these things which it appears nihil contra testatur mundo hic, in quo terminum comprehendere nequimus. Because the observable evidence as we have it doesn't testify against what we see, and so we cannot make a decision. So what Epicurus is saying is, when you have hypotheses, you should not select between them in a situation where you cannot distinguish between them, which was the case in his time. Let's have a look now at line 92, where he goes into this in some more detail. So, ortus et occasus solis ac lunae. So the rising and setting of the sun and the moon. Siderumque caeterorum, and the constellations and all the others. So he says there, all these things. Et per incensionem, they could be by them coming alight, et extinctionem, and them going out, fieri posse, cum talis fuerit circumstantia. Sed etiam aliis modis, ut ea quae antia diximus, effici possunt. But there are also other ways that this could occur. So he's saying you have different ways of explaining something that you've seen. Nihil enim eorum quae videntur obluctatur. So what we have here is this idea that you cannot select between reasons for things. As he says here, let's go by obluctatur. Where are we? Per ad parentiam quoque super terra et rusum per super ad positionem id quod ante diximus conteci possit. Neque enim refragatur aliquidiorum quae cernuntur. ipsorum quoque motus non quidem fieri impossibile secundum vertiginem totius caeli, sive secundum huius quidem statum illorum vero vertiginem juxta eam quae ab initio in generatione mundi genita est necessitatem ab ortu. So we just don't know. We don't know if the Earth is moving or if the universe around it is moving. We don't know if the Earth is stationary and the stars and everything else is going around it, or maybe the sun's in the middle and the Earth's going around. We just don't know these things, so we cannot make decisions about them at all. And 97 now, extremely, extremely important. I probably should have read this one first. So let's find it. Can we find it? Here we are. Praeterea circuitus, ordo accipiatur, sicuti et quaedam vulgaria apud nos fiunt, di uniaque ad haec natura nusquam admoveatur, sed immunis a ministerio in omni sua beatitate seruetur. Nisi enim hoc fiat. Omnis de calistibus calcarum vestigatio in annis erit. So, if you don't think about things carefully, it's all going to be pointless. Sicuti iam quibus dem fuit, qui modum possibilem non attingere. If this method of possibilities was not grasped, what is this sentence? Qui modum possibilem non attingere verum in vanam opinionem inciderunt. If you did not make this idea that everything is contingent, that it's the what I call what Epicurus is calling the method of possible explanations. Qui modum possibilem non attingere. This modum possibilem, if you didn't grasp this, then verum, truthfully, in vanam opinionem inciderunt, then you would fall into vain opinion, into falsity. Dum uno tantum modo arbitrantur haec fieri, because you will think that something could only take place in one way because you've got no way of testing your hypothesis, but you've made a decision. Aliosque omnes possibiles excludunt, and you will exclude all the other possibilities, all the other hypotheses. You just say, this is the hypothesis, the earth is flat, right? Quique ad id quod intelligi neque art. Feruntur. Et ad parentes res, quae velut signa accipiendae sunt, conspicere neque unt. So this little bit here is, I believe, one of the most important things that Epicurus says in the texts that have survived. That without being able to test hypotheses, it's intellectually dishonest to make a decision about which hypothesis is the correct one or not. So this is the first time, as far as I'm aware, that what we now call the scientific method has been described. You investigate, you use your eyes, you see the world, and then you draw hypotheses based on what you see, but crucially, if you have hypotheses that both explain the phenomena, then you cannot choose between them. And you are, as a philosopher, as a natural philosopher, which is what a scientist was, obliged to accept both hypotheses. And so when you read the writings of Epicurus, this has to be kept in mind all the time. When he talks about earthquakes, and he talks about the wind, and he talks about the way the earth came into being, constantly he's talking about hypotheses about the way it could be based on what we can observe. Let's go back to his idea about atoms. He couldn't see them. Right? He inherited the idea from earlier thinkers who'd come up with the idea. That you rub your hand on a statue at the gate of a city, and eventually the metal wears away, but you never see parts fall off. Things dry out when you put them in the sun. They get damp when you put them in a humid environment. Where these little particles you can't see. And he talked about the particles attaching to each other. He didn't know how, so he hypothesized a method of attachment, but this is just a possibility. In other words, nothing that Epicurus says should be regarded as absolute. What he's doing is putting hypotheses forward which could be, in future, rejected or accepted if they could be tested. And of course, from all this time, from 340 BC, it took until Galileo, until we had a method for hypothesis testing. So we didn't have that. Epicurus, what he did was lay the groundwork for the intellectual framework that's necessary to enable the scientific method to develop. And I think he is unique in this. He's a unique philosopher in this, and it's something that we in our lives, I think, should always have in mind. Don't be dogmatic. Try and entertain multiple ideas about something until it becomes clear what actually is real, not real, in terms of what explains the observable phenomena or the measurable phenomena, because not everything that we can see with our eyes, of course, is there. We have other ways of measuring things now. So that's the text. I'm looking at, just if you wanted to know, a dual Greek-Latin translation, and you can find that on Google Books. It's called Diogenes Laertii de Vitis by Diogenes Laertius and Karl Nürnberger, Nurnberger, and that's on Google Books. Voilà. Bye.